My brother and I love each other. I love him deeply. There has been a lot of pain between the two of us, especially the last 6 years.
So William and Catherine have made the decision Harry may fear most about returning to Britain. But the shock is not that he remains outside the crown, it is the door they may leave open. Harry can come back, Meghan can come back, Archie and Lilibet can begin school here. Yet William and Catherine's announcement draws a line around what that return means. And before this story ends, that line could force the brothers closer together in a way neither controls. And one detail changes the whole story. William may be willing to let his children cross the family divide before he does. If that happens, the person who eventually brings William face to face with Harry may not be Charles or Catherine. It may be someone William finds almost impossible to refuse. That answer comes later. First, the story has to go back, because it did not begin with William. It began on Sunday, August 16th, when King Charles was informed that Harry and Meghan were preparing to return to Britain with Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. This was not another brief visit. The family was preparing for an extended stay, with both children expected to begin school in Britain in September. For Charles, the news was personal. His grandchildren would finally be close enough for ordinary contact.
I want also to express my love for Harry and Meghan as they continue to build their lives.
Britain could become part of everyday life instead of a place tied mainly to short visits and tension. But almost immediately, another question surfaced. If Harry was returning to Britain, what exactly was he returning to? Hi viewers, should Archie and Lilibet be kept out of the adults' feud? Yes or no? Put yes or no in the comments. And if the answer is yes, then this is one of those moments where staying silent almost feels like choosing a side. People are always quick to speak when William and Harry are fighting, quick to argue over Meghan, quick to defend one side and attack the other. But these 5 children did not create any of it. So if viewers truly believe Archie, Lilibet, George, Charlotte and Louis should never inherit a feud they had no part in creating, type children first in the comments so everyone can see it in unison. Hit the like button, subscribe to Palace Beacon and share this video with someone who believes the children deserve better than carrying the consequences of decisions made by adults. If people can make noise when a royal family breaks apart, then surely they can make even more noise when there is finally a chance to stop that bitterness reaching the next generation. The question sounds simple, the answer is not. By Wednesday, August 19, reports of the Sussex return were everywhere. Harry and Meghan were coming home. Their children were going to school in Britain. They were expected to live privately. Their status as non-working royals was not changing. Yet one word followed the story: reconciliation. William noticed it, and that was exactly where the old danger returned again. 3 ideas were suddenly being pushed together. Harry living in Britain, Harry returning to the family, Harry returning to royal life. Put photographs of the brothers beside those words, and the distinctions begin to disappear. William had seen this confusion before. On January 8, 2020, Harry and Meghan announced that they intended to step back from senior royal duties. They wanted financial independence and time in North America while continuing to support Queen Elizabeth. 5 days later came the Sandringham Summit. Elizabeth, Charles, William, Harry, and senior officials confronted a question nobody had properly solved. Could someone stand partly inside the monarchy and partly outside it? The answer was no. The hybrid arrangement Harry and Meghan originally wanted did not survive. They stepped away from working royal life, and by 2021 the separation was permanent.
I sit here now in front of you asking for a family, not an institution. I want a family. And I understand how that might be hard for them to be able to separate the two.
The hardest problem was never simply where Harry lived. It was defining the boundary between family and institution. 6 years later, that problem was returning in reverse. Harry was not leaving Britain anymore. He was coming back. And if viewers believe 5 children should not carry the consequences of decisions they never made, subscribing to Palace Beacon now matters. The adults chose their battles. Archie, Lilibet, George, Charlotte and Louis chose none of them. If their generation deserves something better, support the channel and stay with this story. By Friday, August 21, William and Catherine had arrived in Scotland with George, Charlotte and Louis. The newspapers were already turning Harry's return into a test of William's forgiveness. Catherine saw the danger immediately. If Archie and Lilibet were going to live in Britain, somebody would eventually ask whether they would see George, Charlotte and Louis. Birthdays would come, school holidays would come, Christmas would come, Charles would want his grandchildren close. Distance Distance would no longer provide an easy answer. Catherine asked William what happened then. His response was short. That's different. Different from Harry, different from Meghan, different from the interviews, the memoir, the arguments, and everything that had happened between the adults. Catherine did not let the answer end there. Then we need to keep it different. That sentence changed the direction of the story. By Sunday, August 23, after William, Catherine and their children appeared with the royal family at Crathy Kirk near Balmoral, the question could no longer be ignored. Charles wanted clarity. William wanted boundaries. Catherine wanted something neither side had properly defined. And when the family finally confronted the issue, everyone expected Catherine to be the person who softened William. Instead, she would become the person who gave the boundary its shape. Because the real question was no longer whether Harry could come home. It was which doors his return would be allowed to open. At 4:40 that Sunday afternoon, the atmosphere at Balmoral had changed. The church service was over. The photographs had been taken. The cars had returned through the estate gates. From the outside, it looked like another quiet royal Sunday in Scotland. Inside, Charles was no longer interested in avoiding the question. He asked William and Catherine to join him in a private sitting room. Camilla was there. Princess Anne was brought in as well. No lawyers, no constitutional officials, no long table crowded with advisors. That mattered. This was not another Sandringham summit, at least not yet. Charles began with Archie and Lilibet. He spoke about distance, not duty. For most of their lives, his grandchildren had known Britain through short stays, family milestones, and carefully managed visits. Now they were preparing to live here for far longer. School would give them routines, friends, familiar streets, a life that did not begin and end at an airport. Charles wanted one thing understood from the start. Britain had to be allowed to become home to them. Catherine agreed almost immediately. William did not. He did not disagree either. He simply listened as Charles moved carefully toward the part everyone knew was coming. If Harry and Meghan were living within reach of the royal family again, the old arrangement of distance could not solve every problem. Christmas would come, birthdays would come, school holidays would come, there would be memorials, family lunches, private occasions, and moments involving the children that could not always be divided neatly between two households. Then Charles looked directly at William. How do you want this handled? The wording landed badly. William's expression tightened because the question sounded as though Harry's return required his approval. It did not. Harry was British. He could live in Britain. He could raise his children here. William had no intention of pretending otherwise. He made that clear. Charles answered just as quickly. This was not about whether Harry could return to his own country. It was about what happened after he did. That was the difference. The room went quiet. For years, geography had acted like an invisible wall. California was thousands of miles away. Private contact could be postponed. Awkward encounters could be avoided. Family events could be approached one at a time. Now that wall was disappearing, and nobody in the room could pretend the children would not eventually notice. George was 13, Charlotte was 11, Louis was 8, Archie was 7, Lilibet was 5. They were old enough, or soon would be, to understand that they were cousins living in the same country, while the adults around them carried years of unresolved anger. Charles wanted to know where family began again. William wanted to know where royal life stayed firmly separate. Those were not the same question. Then Catherine spoke. Until that moment, the obvious expectation had been that she would push the conversation toward reconciliation. She had often been cast publicly as the person most capable of softening the space between the brothers. If anyone in that room was going to tell William that enough time had passed, many would have expected it to be her. She did not. Instead, Catherine challenged the word everyone outside Balmoral had already started using: reconciliation. Before anyone built a plan around it, she wanted to know what it actually meant. Did reconciliation mean William and Harry speaking privately? Did it mean Meghan and Catherine being seen together? Did it mean Christmas at Sandringham? Did it mean joint engagements? Did it mean Archie and Lilibet spending an afternoon with George, Charlotte and Louis? Or did it mean Harry somehow moving back toward official royal duties? One word was being asked to carry 6 completely different meanings. That was the trap. A private lunch could become a headline about a royal comeback. A photograph of the cousins could be interpreted as proof that the brothers had forgiven everything. One church appearance could be presented as institutional reintegration before any of the people involved had agreed to such a thing. Catherine saw the danger before the room had even decided what it wanted. Charles watched her carefully. Anne said nothing. William finally turned toward Catherine, and then she gave the meeting its first real direction. The return could not be treated as one door opening. There had to be separate doors, separate decisions, separate consequences. For the first time that afternoon, William's posture changed, because Catherine was not asking him to erase the past. She was asking him to define the future. And the next thing she proposed would surprise everyone in that room. The children could be welcomed first, the family could move slowly, but the crown would remain exactly where William believed it belonged, outside the return. And that distinction changed everything. Catherine reduced the problem to something everyone in the room could understand. 3 doors. The first belonged to the children, the second belonged to the family, the third belonged to the crown. They did not have to open together. That was the point. Archie and Lilibet had done nothing to create the bitterness surrounding their parents. George, Charlotte and Louis had done nothing either. Whatever had gone wrong between William and Harry, none of the 5 children had chosen it. Catherine believed the first door could open without forcing the others. The children could know one another. That did not mean the adults had forgiven everything. It did not mean Harry was returning to royal duty. It did not mean Meghan and Catherine had suddenly repaired years of tension. It meant exactly what it said. Cousins could be cousins. Charles leaned forward. That was the easiest part for him to accept. He wanted Archie and Lilibet to feel that Britain was not simply the place where family arguments became headlines. He wanted them to know grandparents, cousins, birthdays and ordinary afternoons. But Catherine was not finished. The second door was family. That one could open slowly. Private contact, small gatherings, a lunch that remained a lunch, a birthday that did not become a public declaration. No carefully arranged photograph designed to convince Britain that 6 years of hurt had vanished. If trust returned, it would have to return quietly. Then came the third door, the crown. That door stayed shut. Harry and Meghan moving back to Britain did not automatically change the settlement that followed their departure from working royal life. Geography was changing. Their official position was not. William finally spoke. Exactly. It was the first time that afternoon he sounded completely certain. Charles looked between them. He understood the principle. What he wanted was the reality. What does that actually look like? And that was when William stopped speaking in broad terms. No sudden joint engagement with William and Catherine. No Wales and Sussex charity appearance built around a reconciliation message. No balcony moment used to suggest Harry was being restored to official duties. No coordinated media plan in which one photograph gradually became evidence of a royal return. No assumption that because Archie and Lilibet attended school in Britain, all 5 children would suddenly be presented as one public royal package. Private family life could restart. Public royal partnership would not restart with it. William's final point was simple. Private means private. Anne had listened almost the entire time without interrupting. Now she did. She agreed with William about the institution. Nobody should confuse living in Britain with representing the sovereign. But Anne was watching something else. William was talking about structure. She was listening for avoidance. And when she finally spoke, the temperature in the room changed. Don't use the institution to avoid your brother forever. William turned toward her. Drawing a line was sensible. Building a wall and calling it a line was something different. William did not say he would never speak to Harry again. He gave a smaller answer. Eventually. Anne held his gaze. Yes, eventually. That exchange exposed the tension underneath every rule being discussed. William could protect the monarchy from confusion. He could protect his children from becoming symbols. He could insist on privacy. What he could not do was turn policy into a permanent substitute for deciding what Harry still meant to him as a brother. And if viewers believe Anne was right to challenge him, this is where silence says more than people realize. If William should protect the crown, but still leave one door open for his brother, type "leave one door open" in the comments. Like the video, share it, and subscribe to Palace Beacon because the next decision was the one nobody expected Catherine to make. She proposed that the first real family contact should not begin with William and Harry. It should begin with the cousins. Catherine wanted Archie and Lilibet invited to a small private family afternoon after they had settled into school. No press notice, no official photographer, no palace social media post, no staged arrival, no headline announcing a royal reunion. Just George, Charlotte, Louis, Archie and Lilibet spending time together. Charles could attend if practical. Catherine would be there. William stared at her, because she had just suggested that his children cross the family divide before he did, and his answer came fast. Number. Not because he blamed Archie, not because he blamed Lilibet, not because he wanted the cousins kept apart. William was already thinking about what would happen after the afternoon ended. Who would know? Who would talk? What would appear in print? Would someone describe what George said? Would somebody report whether Charlotte hugged Lilibet? Would a private moment between children become proof that the adults had reconciled? Then William asked the question that brought every old fear back into the room. What happened when that private afternoon became somebody else's story? And that was precisely the problem. That was the real obstacle. Not geography. Not protocol. Trust. William's hesitation was not about whether 5 cousins could sit in the same room. It was about what happened after everyone went home. A private afternoon sounded harmless until it stopped being private. One detail could escape, then another. A sentence, a photograph, a description of who arrived first, who sat beside whom, who looked comfortable, who did not. Within hours, something meant for children could become evidence in an argument none of them created. William had lived through that pattern before. In December 2022, Harry and Meghan's Netflix series brought old family tensions back into public view. Then, in January 2023, Harry's memoir, Spare, went further. Arguments that once belonged behind closed doors became part of a public record. Private exchanges were discussed. Tensions involving William, Catherine and Meghan were retold. The brothers' relationship was no longer simply strained. Parts of it had become material for the world to examine. That history sat underneath William's answer at Balmoral. He was not only thinking about himself anymore. George was old enough to understand headlines. Charlotte was old enough to notice when her name appeared beside family controversy. Louis was growing into the same world. William knew what it meant for childhood to be watched, interpreted and discussed by strangers. So when Catherine raised the possibility of the cousins meeting after the Sussex family eventually settled back into Britain, William gave one condition. Nothing involving George, Charlotte or Louis could become content. Not an interview story, not a documentary moment, not a photograph released months later, not a carefully briefed anecdote about cousins reconnecting. Not a passage in another book. Nothing. Catherine agreed immediately. Charles did too. Camilla, who had stayed mostly quiet, asked the practical question. How could a family rule like that ever be enforced? William's answer was colder than anyone expected. It shouldn't have to be enforced. Then he paused. It should have to be understood. That distinction mattered. William was not proposing contracts between relatives. He was setting a threshold for trust. If the children were eventually going to be allowed into the most fragile part of this family, once Archie and Lilibet were back in Britain and settled into school, then every adult involved had to understand that their private moments did not belong to the public. And William wanted another safeguard. For roughly the first year after Harry and Meghan's planned return, there would be no deliberate attempt to place the Sussexes beside William and Catherine in public, in a way that suggested official reintegration. No reconciliation tour, no charity appearance designed to test public reaction, no carefully arranged church exit, no slow reconstruction of the old image through photographs. If a major national event eventually required the wider family, that could be considered separately. But there would be no program built around the message that Harry was back inside royal life simply because he had chosen to live in Britain again. That surprised Charles. He had expected William to resist. He had not expected Catherine to support the same line so firmly. Yet Catherine did. Her reasoning was harder to argue with. If the family was ever going to rebuild anything after the Sussexes returned, the rebuilding could not be turned into a performance. The first steps had to survive without applause. Otherwise, nobody would know whether the relationship was real or simply useful. By the following morning, Monday, August 24, the position had been condensed into a short set of principles for the small number of royal households that would eventually have to coordinate private family contact and official diaries once Harry and Meghan were actually back in the country. It was not a televised announcement. There was no balcony, no microphones outside Buckingham Palace, no dramatic statement read to the country. The message was narrower than that. Harry and Meghan's expected move back to Britain would be treated as a private family relocation. It would not be treated as a restoration of working royal status. And then came the sentence that caught people inside the palace off guard. William and Catherine would not stand in the way of a relationship developing between the five cousins after Archie and Lilibet had returned, started school, and been given time to settle. That was the part nobody had expected. For days, the easy prediction had been that William would answer the news of Harry's planned return with one enormous no. Instead, the position was split cleanly down the middle. Yes to family, no to institutional reintegration. Yes to private contact when the time came. No to public theatre. Yes to the children. No to using the children as proof that everything was repaired. By lunchtime, enough people had heard fragments of the position for descriptions to begin moving quietly through royal circles. One phrase kept returning: family first, crown separate. Another was sharper: no reopening Sandringham by stealth. That phrase captured William's deepest institutional fear. He did not necessarily believe Harry was planning to return to Britain and immediately reclaim royal duties. The danger was something subtler: ambiguity, a photograph after the move, a shared appearance weeks later, a private visit that somehow became public, then another. And before anyone consciously decided anything, Britain could begin interpreting physical proximity as royal restoration. William would not allow the optics of Harry's eventual return to make that decision for him. But there was still one person who needed to hear exactly what William and Catherine had decided before boarding a plane with his family. Harry. Word of the palace position began making its way to him while the Sussex family was still preparing for the move. And at first, what reached Harry was incomplete. He heard about the boundary. He heard that William had already decided there would be no automatic return to royal life. He heard that limits were being discussed before he and Meghan had even arrived in Britain. What he did not immediately hear was the part about Archie and Lilibet, and that missing piece changed everything. Because from Harry's side, it could sound as though William had drawn rules around a request Harry had never made. He was preparing to bring his family back to Britain. He was not applying to return to Buckingham Palace. And when that first version of the message reached him, Harry's reaction was immediate. He was furious. Harry's anger came from one simple point. He had not asked William for a role. He had not asked to stand on a balcony. He had not asked for a joint engagement, a new title, or a route back into the working monarchy. He was preparing to move his family to Britain. So when the first version of William and Catherine's position reached him, it sounded less like a boundary and more like a response to a request he had never made. For several hours, the mood hardened. Harry wanted to know why rules were being drawn before he had even returned. Why was his move being treated like an institutional negotiation? Then Charles stepped in. He wanted the full position understood. And the second half changed the temperature immediately. Archie and Lilibet would not be treated as extensions of the dispute between their father and William. Nobody was demanding that Harry repair 6 years of damage before his children could know George, Charlotte and Louis. Nobody was asking Archie to wait for his father. Nobody was asking Lilibet to carry resentment she had never created. The cousins could have a private relationship of their own. Harry stopped. That was not what he had expected to hear. The condition was simple. Anything involving the Wales children had to remain private unless both families agreed otherwise. No anecdote for an interview. No photograph released later. No story used to prove reconciliation had happened. No commercial retelling of a private afternoon. Harry understood why William had insisted on it. He did not have to like the line to understand the fear behind it. And on that point he accepted it. That was the first real movement. Not a handshake, not a photograph, not two brothers sitting together, just an agreement over their children. Meghan then raised the question that made the arrangement harder to dismiss as one-sided. If private meant the Sussexes could not turn the children's contact into public material, did the same rule bind William and Catherine? Could Kensington Palace use Archie and Lilibet in the opposite direction? Could a photograph of the cousins be released to make the Wales household look generous? Could a briefing present William and Catherine as the people who had reopened the family? The answer was no. The privacy rule worked both ways. That single detail made the entire arrangement feel fundamentally different. It was no longer silence imposed on Harry and Meghan. It was a wall around all 5 children. And there was a reason William was so wary of images. September 2022 had already shown him what one photograph could do. After Queen Elizabeth II died, William, Catherine, Harry and Meghan appeared together outside Windsor Castle. The 4 walked side by side, greeting mourners. One appearance, one image, and immediately the questions exploded. Were the 4 reunited? Was the feud ending? Had grief repaired everything? It had not. The photograph had raced ahead of reality. William remembered that. One picture could make the public write the ending before the family had even reached the first page. Catherine agreed. No staged reunion photograph. Not yet. No carefully arranged image of the cousins. No public embrace designed to tell Britain how to interpret something still fragile. If a genuine relationship formed, it had to exist before it was displayed. Charles accepted most of that, but one part bothered him. The public firewall sounded too rigid for family life. What happened at Christmas? What happened at a birthday? What if Harry and Meghan attended church? What if Archie or Lilibet appeared somewhere with their grandfather? William clarified the difference. It was not a ban, it was a presumption. Private first. Every public crossover considered separately. Nothing automatic, nothing that could be mistaken for a return to official royal life. Charles could live with that. But before the conversation ended, he gave William one warning. Eventually, he would have to see his brother. And for the first time, William did not answer with a refusal. His answer was smaller. Not yet. That was movement. But later, away from Charles, Camilla and Anne, Catherine would tell William something far more uncomfortable. He had spent the day talking about protecting George, Charlotte and Louis. He had not yet fully considered who might need protecting on Harry's side too. Later that evening, Catherine spoke to William alone. The formal discussion was over. The boundaries had been drawn, but Catherine was still thinking about the children, not only her own. William had spent hours explaining how George, Charlotte and Louis had to be protected from headlines and private moments becoming public material. Catherine agreed. Then she shifted the question. What about Archie and Lilibet? They were preparing to enter British schools carrying names almost everyone would recognise. Other parents would know the interviews, Spare, and the arguments surrounding Harry and Meghan. Archie was 7. Lilibet was 5, and Catherine made William imagine what that might feel like. A child walking into a classroom and discovering that strangers already had a story about his family. William went quiet. He understood that world. He had grown up with newspapers discussing his parents and adults forming opinions about his family before he could make sense of it. For the first time that day, Archie was no longer simply Harry's son in William's mind. He was a 7-year-old boy walking towards something William knew frighteningly well. That changed the final position. William did not soften the boundary around royal life. He strengthened the protection around the children. The Wales household was to treat Archie and Lilibet as family, not as a Sussex problem. No language about their side, no awkward distinction between the cousins. Whatever remained unresolved between William and Harry belonged to William and Harry, not to their children.
Because the future of our children is something we all build together, through the actions each and every one of us takes every day.
When Anne heard about that addition, her response was sharp. That's the first sensible thing any of you have done about this in years. Then came the next question. When would the cousins actually meet? Not immediately. Harry and Meghan had not completed the move yet. Archie and Lilibet would need time to arrive, begin school and settle. So the first private family afternoon was tentatively discussed for later, possibly toward the end of September or early October, somewhere around Windsor. No announcement beforehand, no official photographer. Charles could attend. Catherine was willing to be there. George, Charlotte and Louis would be there. Archie and Lilibet would come with their parents. But William had not promised that he would attend. At first, it sounded like rejection again. William could allow the children to meet, but still could not sit down with his own brother. Then the meaning became clearer. William was not asking to see Archie and Lilibet without Harry. He was saying something harder. He would allow his own children to cross the divide, even if he was not ready to cross it himself. He would not make 5 children wait for 2 brothers. And Harry did not answer publicly. He simply accepted it. Later, Catherine told William he would eventually go. William insisted he had not decided. Catherine disagreed. She knew what could change his mind. Not Charles, not the palace, not public pressure. George. Because one day, George might simply ask his father to come with him. That was the twist nobody expected. The first bridge back might not be built by the brothers at all, but by their children. William and Catherine's announcement was never a complete rejection of Harry and Meghan. It was a separation. Britain was open. Family could reopen slowly. The cousins could know one another. But the crown remained separate. Private life could begin again without pretending public trust had returned. Late on August 24th, William asked Catherine whether they had been too hard. She said no. Then he asked whether they had been too soft. Catherine almost smiled. Probably. 6 years earlier, the royal family had been trying to work out how Harry could leave. Now they were trying to work out how he could come home without automatically coming back to the crown. And if viewers believe William and Catherine have drawn that line in the right place, type children first in the comments, like the video, share it, and subscribe to Palace Beacon. If people can argue for years over the adults, they can stand together for 5 children who never chose this divide. Because the next story begins with one question nobody has answered yet. What happens when the first private Windsor gathering is arranged? All 5 cousins are expected inside. Harry is preparing to walk through the door, and George turns to William and asks him to come too. That single moment could decide whether the boundary holds, or whether 2 brothers finally end up in the same room.